I had a 1-hour chat with a brother last night, and he's frustrated. Married man. He said, Paul, I'm so sick and tired of arguing with my wife. And he said, she has no respect, and I'm having a hard time staying in a home where I just feel disrespected, you know? And I said, brother, sometimes you just got to stay quiet. And I said, listen, I know how it feels. I've been there. But have you ever tried just staying quiet? And he said, no, because she really pushes me, you know? And I said to him, I want you to just try something. Just for the next argument that come up, you just said, whatever, and you just stay quiet. See what happens. And it's so funny because a couple of days ago, I was watching this video here. They had this piece on, and I just thought it was so appropriate. And this video is called, let me read it. Destroy any woman without saying anything. Whew. And it's by Psych Depth. I've featured these guys before, and I love their content. The visuals are interesting. I know it's an AI voice, but it's well written, and the information is beautifully done. So I want to feature a small portion of this video again today because it sort of brings together what I was trying to explain to this brother last night. Okay, so my friends, like the video. I am sure a lot of you men have experienced the same problem with women, where women are trying to get a rise out of you. Women have this way of pulling you into their arena, and their arena is the verbal battle. And that's what you got to try to avoid, because you can't win in a verbal battle because it's not about logic and facts. It's about emotion. But anyway, subscribe, book a session, and of course, check out one of my digital products. So let's get into Psych Depth, my friends.
She's arguing with you again. Her voice is rising. She's listing every mistake you've made since 2019, and you feel that familiar urge to defend yourself, to explain why she's wrong, to prove your point with facts and logic. Your mouth opens to fire back with your carefully prepared counter-arguments, but then something stops you. You close your mouth. You look at her calmly. You say nothing. The change is immediate and unsettling. Her momentum falters. The rhythm of the argument breaks. She's no longer fighting against your resistance. She's performing for an audience that's no longer participating. The power dynamic has shifted in an instant, and she doesn't understand how. Welcome to the most powerful weapon in psychological warfare: strategic silence. Not the silence of weakness, not the quiet of submission, but the silence of absolute control. Today, I'm going to teach you how to use this weapon to gain psychological advantage over any woman without speaking a single word. Most men believe that winning arguments requires superior reasoning, better facts, or more convincing rhetoric. They think that verbal combat is won through verbal superiority, that the person with the best arguments, the quickest wit, or the most compelling evidence emerges victorious.
You see, that's only when you're arguing against a logical man. That is the stuff that we compete against each other with. But none of that is relevant for women. The reality of it is women do not argue with us because they're trying to prove a point. Their issue is simply that if they come across any point, they will lose on logic and reasoning at all times. Every single time. Every single time. Even if she knows that you have some strong points and facts, she will break down. She will either start crying, she will either start personally attacking you, or she'll bring up stuff from months, years, way back, just to trigger something else. In other words, she'll start to move the goalposts. That is the MO of a lot of these women's argument. And she will skillfully tie these two things together so that it seems like you're wrong. Totally bypassing all of the facts and the realities on the ground and the issues that you're facing right now. Gentlemen, you let me know. You let me know if this is what you face in your everyday life. Because this is a common MO amongst all women. Not most, all women.
This belief traps them in a game they cannot win because they're playing by rules that were designed to ensure their defeat. Every time you engage in verbal combat with a woman, you're entering her arena, playing her game, using her weapons. You're competing in a contest where the rules change constantly, and victory is determined not by logic but by emotional manipulation. Women excel at verbal warfare not because they're more logical, but because they understand that arguments aren't really about truth or facts. They're about power, control, and emotional dominance. While you're trying to win through reason, she's winning through psychological pressure, emotional manipulation, and strategic victimhood. The moment you open your mouth to defend yourself, you've already lost. You've signaled that her opinion matters enough to you that you feel compelled to change it. You've revealed that her criticism has power over you. You've demonstrated that you need her approval enough to fight for it. This desperate need to be understood, to be right, to have the last word is what keeps men trapped in endless cycles of fruitless arguments that drain their energy while strengthening her position. Every word you speak in your defense is evidence of your weakness. Every argument you make is proof of your insecurity. The only winning move in verbal combat is not to play. The only way to maintain power in an argument is to refuse to engage in one. Understanding how to use silence effectively requires understanding the psychological mechanisms that drive female argumentative behavior. Women don't argue to discover truth or reach understanding. They argue to establish dominance, control emotions, and extract validation.
Oh man, this guy knows his psychology. He knows his psychology to the T, because this is common amongst a lot of women. And that's why men do not like to engage with women in the boardroom. In business, it's a nightmare. And what can you do? Most men just have to grin and bear it.
When a man goes silent, a lot of times he's identified that arguing with you leads to nothing but more frustration and pain. So he will often just stand down in order to maintain his level of peace. To him, nothing is gained by arguing over moot points.
The reality of it is, gentlemen, is that if you want to have success in your home, where the woman is constantly pushing for dominance, you have to refrain from screaming, bellowing, and making her feel that what she's saying is important. Now, listen, I have a hard time with it. Listen, I'm in a house with 3 women. Okay, 3. And sometimes it gets on my nerves, man, because they're constantly executing this innate command in their brain. My 2 teenage daughters are constantly practicing how they need to find this feeling of dominance and security. And I have to put them in their place many times, because I can no longer look at them as my little girls anymore, my little babies. No, they're women now who are training and honing their psychological skills. And it's amazing how good they are at this age, 16 and 18. They're freaking damn good at it. But a lot of the times I'm forced to put on the hard man voice. No, my little babies. No. Hey, cut that shit out. That's the voice I have to put on. I have to tell them where they're going wrong. Because if they grow up thinking that, hey, this is how I can talk to daddy and get away with it, then that's how I should treat my husband. And I said, no man's going to put up with that shit. No man that they want. I said, you ought to learn to calm yourselves down. And so it's a constant battle. And I keep telling my wife, listen, this is the stage at which our daughters have now reached, where this is where parenting begins. In the past, when they were young and they were malleable and they were easy to help out and give excuses to, we are past that stage now. This is the stage where serious parenting is vital. So gentlemen, you can't ignore this part of life when it comes to your daughters. And a lot of women have a hard time teaching their daughters discipline. That's why they always end up on the streets, man, when they don't have a father figure in place. But I know a lot of you are fighting against the very individuals that you should be in cahoots, partnership, together, helping to raise the kids, because she's also fighting you for dominance as well. And so how can you stay silent in that? Because in a lot of these positions, they look at your silence as weakness. If this was some sort of hookup situation, it will be different. You can stay silent. But when it's your wife, it's a lot more difficult. But it should be practiced. It should be practiced with an explanation. Meaning, you can say, listen, I'm not going to have this argument with you. You're forcing me to come and start screaming at you for some stupid reason. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say what I want to say right now. You, XYZ, this is what I'm going to do. There's no argument. Take it or leave it and walk away.
Female arguments operate on emotional rather than logical principles. The content of the disagreement is often irrelevant. What matters is the emotional dynamic being created. She's not trying to convince you that she's right. She's trying to make you feel wrong, guilty, or defensive. This emotional strategy works because most men assume that arguments are logical exchanges where the best reasoning wins. They respond to emotional attacks with logical defenses, not realizing that logic is completely irrelevant to the contest they're actually in. When she lists your failures, she's not providing evidence for a logical conclusion. She's creating emotional pressure designed to make you reactive and defensive. When she uses phrases like "you always" or "you never," she's not making factual claims. She's deploying psychological weapons designed to trigger guilt and compliance. The entire framework of female argumentation depends on your participation. Without your emotional reactions, defensive responses, and desperate attempts to prove yourself, her strategy collapses. She needs you to engage, react, and defend in order to maintain the power dynamic that serves her interests. This is why silence is so psychologically devastating to women who are used to controlling men through verbal manipulation. Your refusal to participate breaks the entire system and forces her to confront the emptiness of her strategy. When you respond to female criticism with silence, you create what psychologists call the mirror effect. Instead of providing the resistance she needs to maintain her emotional momentum, you become a blank surface that reflects her own words and energy back at her. This reflection forces her to confront the reality of her own behavior without the distraction of your defensive responses. She hears her own voice rising in anger. She notices her own emotional intensity. She becomes aware of how she sounds when she's not getting the reaction she expects. The mirror effect is psychologically uncomfortable because it eliminates the external target for her emotions. Instead of directing her anger at your responses, she's forced to sit with her own emotional state. This discomfort often leads to escalation as she tries harder to provoke the reaction she needs to justify her behavior.
Yes. The other day I watched this video on the lead attorney, and he was highlighting a woman who was cheating on her husband, but he refused to engage her. And it got to a point where she started to physically abuse him. And he caught it on camera, went to the police station and reported her. But it was the silence, the withdrawal that she couldn't handle that made her escalate her anger. And that in turn was what got her in trouble. It was the silence that got her. So gentlemen, understand that it is a potent weapon. This silence is a potent weapon.
Telling me you're in a fight with your man and you say, babe, I just don't even want to talk anymore, give me some space. And he actually gives you space.
I don't suppose that the outcome of this little scenario is that the woman was pleased that the man listened to what she had to say, respected her wishes, and gave her that needed space, is it?
Like, obviously I want to talk.
Based on what? The words that one used? Oh, no, wait. This is one of those instances when men are actually supposed to be mind readers and know what some women actually mean instead of the words that actually come out of their mouth.
Like, obviously, I want you to, be like, no, we're talking.
Then obviously, a person should use the words that they actually mean to express their feelings, wants, and desires. What a fantastical idea.
Was I not clear?
No, in point of fact, one was being the very opposite of clear. One was not only being vague, but acting in such an infantile manner as to seemingly encourage men in some cases to completely disregard what some women have to say when it comes to their wants and needs. Oh yes, I couldn't see what could go possibly wrong with that.
But you have to use it strategically. You got to know when you have to put your foot down and state your case, and then you got to know when to be quiet. And it's a delicate balance because a lot of time that woman is very good at drawing you into the argument. You just have to reach that point where you state your case, put your arguments out there, whether she listens or not, and then you be quiet and you walk away. That's it. Just say, listen, I'm finished. I'm not interested in having this argument with you. You get your shit together. When you calm down and want to have a rational discussion with me, I'm open to that. But until then, I'm not going to have an argument. And maybe that's how you need to get to that position.
Women, when a good man withdraws into silence, it generally means two things. First, he may be exhausted from repeating himself, voicing his concerns countless times without actually being heard. Or second, he may be on the verge of giving up, not just in a literal sense, but also in the depth of his spirit. A good man who feels unappreciated begins to disengage emotionally. Psychologists call it emotional detachment. I simply say he's tired. When his requests are only met when they align with your desires and logic, the relationship eventually fractures. This is why he no longer asks you to help him with anything. Please understand this. When a good man stops speaking, it's not just his words that are gone. It's his hope in your future together. Recognize his silence for what it is, a chance to act. Shalom.
So for all of you gentlemen that are having a hard time having deep discussions with your wife or your girlfriend, significant other, and you just need to understand how to resolve it, silence is probably your best bet. I'm going to keep this one short. Go over to the site. Of course, I'm going to link this video. Go over to Psych Depth. Check it out. You know, I love this channel. You've seen me present work from here before, and I'll probably bring you some more in the near future, just so that I can break it down and evaluate it and give you some examples. But yeah, I love their work. It's a good channel. Okay? So my friends, like this video on the way out. Let me hear about your situation in the comment section. Let's have a discussion. This is where men meet up and have discussions, man. We need to share our pain and we need to share our ideas in the comment section. Okay? This Saturday coming up, I'm going to have another session that I'm going to record for YouTube, where if you're part of the membership site, the free site over on School, you can participate in the discussion that I'm going to record for 1 hour for YouTube. And of course, 1 hour where just the community can communicate and get together. So that's this Saturday morning in New York time. Okay? So my friends, subscribe if you haven't already. Book a session. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay? So until then, remember, whenever in doubt, always ask an older man. See you soon. Cheers.